Corporation of London, which is the sort of formal body, which is kind of a state within a state, and the church, and the significance for me of the church is that it's a very bizarre force in the modern world, in that it still has these sort of founding documents that, much as I'm sure they've changed over the years, and but certainly not kind of Bible bashing or Christian. I think the literal truth is, for me, an incoherent notion anyway, because you get 20 people reading the same page and they're all going to interpret it differently. But the point is, you nonetheless have this very radical philosophy that is still there in Christianity, that it's about compassionate revolution, it's about the rich giving all their wealth away to share with the poor, it's about turning the world upside down. And before the Christian church became the sort of new front for the Roman Empire, it was the religion of the oppressed, and thousands of early Christians were executed in incredibly brutal ways by the Roman Empire, etc. So you have this institution which is representative of 1700 years basically of corruption and power, and it's soaked in the blood of slavery and imperialism and the rest of it. But on the other hand, it is supposedly representative of this compassionate revolutionary philosophy. And as there's a canon called Giles Fraser, canon being a sort of priest in the cathedral hierarchy who resigned fairly early on, and on the second day of the protest was responsible for removing the very violent police presence that we had in the camp. And he's a very interesting voice. He writes for The Guardian actually full time, but he talks about like a theological fault line going down the middle of the church, and on the one side you have the establishment and the bloodies, power politics and all the rest of it. On the other you have still this very, very revolutionary philosophy that I think is exactly the philosophy that we need as a world right now. It's the philosophy that the left needs to have any chance of uniting, of not sort of fracturing and falling into the same patterns that other leftist revolutions have fallen into. And it's also a language that gets beyond the idea of left and right, so that is really important as well. Right? Especially when you add the word wing, the very idea of two wings is that they don't function without each other. So it's the very idea of left and right is a highly propagandizing one. It implies that the truth must only be somewhere between the two. So when people like me make what I think are categorical, objective arguments about what's going on in the world and present the evidence, people go, oh, well, it's politics, so it's just an opinion. It's like, well, no, that there are matters of fact when it comes to politics, and that was actually the case that we brought to the court to bring about. And we said to the court that we have all sorts of evidence of what's going on, how current policy goes directly against the interests of tens of millions of people in the UK, let alone billions across the world. And that is why we're here. We had global experts on things like inequality and tax justice and the economic system coming into the court and saying this movement has absolutely transformed the role of these crucial issues in our public narrative. So the argument we brought to the court is we have had a demonstrably positive democratic effect, and in terms of how the European Convention on Human Rights is worded, that should be enough to defend the camp. But what in fact happened was the first court said it's absolutely nothing to do with us, what you're protesting about, that's nothing to do with it. The second court, the Court of Appeal that we took it to, that didn't actually allow our appeal, nonetheless in the appeal hearing and in its sort of judgment that denied the appeal, said yes, the first court was wrong to say that what you're protesting about should be nothing to do with it. It is relevant, but it's not a weighty, this is the term, not a weighty consideration compared to the property rights of the Corporation of London and the church and the various other sort of trivial issues that they've used to legitimate getting rid of this. Local authority charged with maintaining the highways and planning in the area, it was that body that was granted the license to remove this.